jobs that well, first our least favorite jobs, and then will they exist in the future, I believe is the topic, if I got that right. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of inspired by a, well, it's self promotion, I guess. But the first thing that I published was a collection of stories that were, each of them are about a job that no longer exists. So it's fiction, but I took the real life jobs and kind of wrote stories around them. So there's things like an arch mime that an arch mime would be at the front of a funeral procession. Oh, timely!
What?
And it would he would wear a mask that was made to look like the person who had passed away, and then they would do impressions of the person who died. And the idea was that it would help people who weren't able to say goodbye. You said your piece to this person, and yeah,
this is blowing my mind.
Yeah, so things like that. So I wrote a story about the last arch mime, and it's a different take on it. And then things like what else is there? There's a sin eater, which people might be more familiar with. Just a person who was basically designated to. They would prepare a meal on the body of a. There's a lot of death in this. A lot on the corpse, and then eat the meal off the corpse, and they would basically inherit the sins of the person who died, and their idea was that this person would take the blame for their sins, and then the person who died would be clean and pure going into the afterlife.
But that was a job?
Yeah, and this person would like
you get paid to
go to super hell.
Yeah.
So
just
even though they were
sin.
like they were doing like a favor for the whole town, they would be like a pariah. Like no one wanted to be anywhere near this person because they were just
cursed practically,
super evil. Stuff like that. So I there's about 12 or 13 stories in there, and it got me like really interested in just this idea of things that there's jobs that we used to have that have come out of fashion for one reason or another. The final story in the collection is actually a bit of a different take because it's about a writer who's being replaced by AI and all sorts of things, but it's a bigger world. And I wrote that before a lot of the AI stuff was happening. And so it's actually like a lot of it's come true to some extent. But it just got me thinking for this podcast. I was like, everyone has done a job that they either hate or that probably won't exist maybe already or in the near future, as like AI takes jobs and robots takes jobs and stuff like that. So I just wanted to like see if anyone had any great or terrible stories about jobs that they've had. I know a few of Coop's. Obviously I know mine, but I mean, Grimpin, I'm sure you got a lot of tales from the moon. Wait, where are you
not
from again?
Too interesting. I can't think of anything that's been made obsolete. I can't even think of it like that. Filling a book with obsolete jobs, it would take me so long to even think of jobs that don't exist anymore. And now I'm wondering why I can't be an arch mime. But
yeah, we can bring it back.
Yeah.
I don't see why it shouldn't. With like the ultra religious right coming into fashion, it seems like there's been no better time to bring back the arch mime. There were 2 summers when I was in high school where I went down to a town where my dad was the town manager, and I was a garbage man for 2 summers. And it was both the worst and best job I ever had. Like there's something great about, I haven't had that dumb of grunt work since then, really, actually, but there's something really great about being able to just not think for an entire day. But the amount of cool shit that people threw away that we would get first dibs on as garbage people was truly wild. And people threw away like good stuff. And I guess that's how I started my trash hoarding mentality.
What was the best thing you got out of that?
I don't know if I have much still. We got it's like a full bar, like it's the piece of, you remember it at my apartment, the bar there. I don't know if maybe you don't remember.
At what part? Where?
At my apartment. It was outside on the balcony.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was from the trash. It was a piece of like old like retro furniture that was all like leather padded, and it was so cool. Yeah, there was one guy who he threw away a vast pornography collection, but one of the older guys that worked there took it all. That was a really weird.
Imagine
all
just
of it.
calling
He like
dibs on it.
proudly was like, "Oh, this is all for me," in front of the like 16-year-old kid who's working with him. So that was cool.
Oh yeah, infinite porn.
Don't
need the internet
didn't exist
anymore,
yet.
yeah.
So yeah. That I think is the gnarliest job I had. There was a lot of nasty, picking up gross smelling stuff and doing all that. That was really the only downside, actually.
Have you ever had a job that you think will be replaced or no longer?
It's one of those things where like accountantship probably that'll all go away, but to a certain extent, like analytical accountantship can't ever really. But probably those will all go away sooner than later. Like I already basically don't do my taxes, and that was my first thing out of school, was doing people's taxes. Now that's all just done by programs.
Yeah. But a garbage man, that's a hard one to replace.
It's true, but then if we all have to put our garbage in the same place, then a robot can just go and collect that every day. Like,
I guess if you have self-driving cars, you're halfway there.
It's only a matter of minutes.
I try to think of my least favorite job I've had, and if it will be obsolete at some point. And my least favorite job I've ever had was I worked a summer at Superstore night shift. It's the real Canadian Superstore. We have them here, and just in case someone's listening from somewhere else, it's just like a half grocery store, half like almost like a Walmart kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of like a Walmart.
Yeah, it's Canadian Walmart. Kinda. Yeah.
But the reason I was working there was I had previous to that worked at Toys R Us with Pants and a bunch of other people. I'll talk about that one day as well. But it was an amazing experience. I loved that job, and so I thought, oh, maybe every night shift job will be amazing, and I was very wrong. Superstore was like the most boring. It's like they went out of their way to make it as bad as possible. You would show up, I think, at like 11:30 at night, and you were assigned an aisle that was going to be yours forever. Like once you got it, that was not yours just for that night. It was that you were that guy forever kind of thing. And I got the pet food aisle, which I kind of liked because it's like big. It sucks because it's like huge, heavy bags of food all the time. But because they're bigger items, it kind of takes, you have less items because like you can only pack so much on a pallet or whatever. But yeah, it was just so lonely. Like you would just have one aisle to yourself. You would never even see another person. Jacob and Enver, my friends, also got hired there, and so we were each in a separate aisle. We would never even see each other. We would just be very slowly piling, like just putting something from a stack of a pallet onto the shelf. And then we would get one 15-minute break, and we would all meet in the magazine aisle, and we'd sit on the ground and read like gaming magazines for like 10 minutes. And then
I think I worked at that Superstore at the same time as you, but on the day shift as well.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
I remember you did work there at one point.
Yeah. It's one of those, it's a lot more social in the day. It's at night.
And then after the break, you go right back, and they would play the most, like, they had their playlist of music was so terrible. It was just what was that guy's name that did like the banana pancakes, like the acoustic guy? He was really huge for a while.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
John Mayer?
No.
Banana pancakes.
Start with it. Yeah.
He was like, he had like this kind of a
Sebastian or
surfer
something?
vibe to him.
Yeah, totally.
But his music, it just felt like the music personification of boring. Like it was just
Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
It was just too laid back to the point where it went from like chill vibe to like I hate this. It was just so boring, and that slow melody, and it was the same tracks every night. I just remember every song from that job I hate to this day. Like if I hear it, I shudder because I'm like, oh, it just all comes back and hits me. But yeah, and then obviously it's at night, and it was just super boring. So I hated that job, and that for sure it could be replaced by like any warehouse type job will be replaced by robots, like in
Absolutely. Already practically.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my answer. The only good thing that ever happened while working there was, like, the only highlight that I remember bringing me joy was one time we were all reading magazines and Enver just threw up randomly. Like, he wasn't even sick. He was not even sick. He just was sitting there, and all of a sudden he just like projectile vomited for like a half a second. It was just like, and like he just threw up, and then he was fine. It was so weird. And yeah, that was like the only pleasant experience that was kind of fun.
The job that came to mind for me is a really weird one. In some ways it was kind of cool, but it's I've gotten a few jobs as an actor randomly, and this was a job that was offered to a friend of mine, and they couldn't do it, and so they passed it down to me. It was at Heritage Days, which, if you're listening and you don't know, is a big festival with all these different tents based on different countries. And I was hired to dress up as an English Bobby, a police officer, and walk around Heritage Days and pass out cards to people to promote Air Canada's direct flights to London.
Wow.
What?
It was awful. It was so hot. And I was just in this full black costume that was heavy. And I had to speak in an English accent the whole time, which I'm not good at. So it kept like going in and out the whole time. Oh, it was just terrible.
Did people ask you questions?
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh,
I was so bad at it. I just avoided people as much as I could. I would just like walk away from big groups and stuff. And they eventually they got, they were like, "You're not doing a good enough job." And I just had to like pass out stuff to people and not talk to them at all after a while. But at first they were like, "No, you have to do the soft sell. You have to like talk to them and like riff with them a little bit." Oh, it was terrible. And then at one point I was not paying attention. I went too close to there's an England tent. And so people, like English people, were coming up to me like, "Oh, where are you from?" and stuff like that. And I was just like, "Oh my God, I gotta get out of here."
What
London
kind of
town? Chat.
Yeah, exactly. Around. Bye.
What kind of hat does a Bobby have? Is it?
It's like a black. It's almost like a bell that you wear.
Oh, God.
It's like a pith helmet, but black.
Kind of, yeah.
Is that the spike thing on top, or
no? Yeah. No, that's like an army hat of some kind.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a really weird job. But I couldn't do that.
Absolutely.
I had
and you got to enjoy all the Heritage Day festivities.
Except I was just terrified all the time of anyone talking to me.
Heritage Days is great.
Heritage Days is awesome.
It's my actual favorite holiday of the year.
Yeah,
it's
the most interesting one. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I went to Heritage Days and I was wearing my Mr. Bean t-shirt. It was basically a white t-shirt, but the entire shirt was his face. There was no other like blank space. It was just a huge close-up of Mr. Bean. And like, for whatever, I didn't realize he's so famous across the world. And so like everyone was stopping me going like, "Oh, I love that shirt. Oh yeah, Mr. Bean." Like every country, like everyone knew who it was. And yeah, that's when I learned that Rowan Atkinson is a billionaire.
It's truly universal. Yeah.
I worked at I always try to get like a different summer job when I was after high school and even during high school. But I worked at a pharmacy once, and it was not a chain. It wasn't like Shoppers or IDA or anything like that. It was just like a guy who I knew who owned a pharmacy. And so I got to do a lot of things that I wouldn't probably be licensed or legally allowed to do. And one of them was mixing the methadone with Tang, so that the people who are addicted to drugs and trying to get off of drug use, they would drink methadone that it was like 1 part methadone, like a little time, and then like 40 parts Tang, and it still tasted awful apparently. But every morning, so they would have to do this in the morning, and they would have gone through the whole night without like, not using drugs. And so I would come in the morning, and we had these huge glass windows, and they would just, all of them would just be pounding against the glass, like a scene from The Walking Dead or something.
Yeah.
And they're all just desperate to get this meth. And so we'd finally like unlock the door, and we'd have to like keep them calm and get them their methadone, and they'd go out and just chug this awful mixture back. But anyways, I got to mix that stuff, and I would I would try and like, because it tasted awful. I would try and give them as much tang as I could. But my boss was very like, just a real penny pincher, and he wouldn't let me fill the whole bottle up with tang. So I was like, this stuff tastes brutal. And he's like, yes, but only give them half the bottle of tang. And I'm like, no, I'm going to give them the full bottle of tang. And so I kept giving people the full bottle, and they really liked my methadone. And I realized I became like a weird, like, inverted drug pusher, like, because everyone started coming to me for my methadone, and it was just like,
you gotta see Jeremy. He spices up my tang.
He's the best meth tang around.
After the tang wars with your boss,
yeah. I had to do landscaping for a condo complex, and I remember it because I wrote a story about this actually, because I had to go around in circles and circles and circles and stuff, just mowing all these lawns in a rider mower. And I remember driving past this small group of kids one day, and they had this. It looked like a little, like a box with a blanket over it and something like that. And one of them had made a little sign and stuck it on it, and it said "Bird Hospital." And I was like, oh, that's cute, whatever. And I had to yell at them to be like, hey, you have to get off the grass because I'm going to be mowing there later. And they like wouldn't get off. So I'd do a pass, and they were still there. I'd say, hey, you got to get off. Do another pass, and I'm getting closer and closer to them. And finally, when I'm like fairly close, I stop and I say, hey, you guys got to leave. And I call their parents, and their parents come and drag the kids away and drag all the bird hospital stuff that they'd set up, whatever, and not thinking anything about it. And so I do my pass, and I go over the part where they were, and the last second I see that there's an injured bird, and they had like constructed a little fake hospital around it, and I see it just as it goes under the mower, and the bird gets sucked up and gets just cut up into a million pieces, and there was a hole in the tube that goes from the ground into the back where all the clippings would go, and it was just blood and guts went shooting out all over.
It's like in a video game.
Yeah, and it was just this like red mist